people often say Christians should not judge, but is that actually biblical? If you look at Matthew 7, 1 through 5, Jesus says, "Judge not, that you be not judged, for with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when there is a log in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the log out of your own eye, then you will clearly see to take the speck out of your brother's eye."
I think it's a very like I think with all things, and maybe you'll I think through this conversation you'll probably kind of get this feel, and is that it's nuanced. I think it just depends on what people mean by judge, what it means to judge someone or judge. And it also depends, like, are we talking about just judging people? Are we judging institutions? Like what are we judging? And so I think I think it depends. And so there's no like a yes or no answer. And so I think context and nuance is really important.
Well, let's start then with judge, like, because you said, like, how do we define judge?
We can define it first. Yeah.
So I guess, how would you define judge? Like, do you think we should pull up the Merriam-Webster?
No, I think there's like a couple ways to do it. I think the main, when people say, "Oh, don't judge me," or like it's like kind of the common understanding is, if I were to judge you, I'm making a conclusion about you or a behavior, something about you, and then I'm going to react negatively to you, right? I'm gonna, I'm not gonna talk to you. I'm gonna be mad at you or something like that. And I think there's a difference between judging and there should be some nuance between the judging and the action that you take. Because I think a judgment is just it's just making a determination, right? I can think something's good or bad, fun or not, but it doesn't mean I have to be an a-hole about it, or I don't have to like judge someone and then be a mean person or be hateful to that person, right?
Right.
And so I think judgment is important. I think we need to judge things all the time.
Right.
And we can kind of get into like what we should judge, I guess, with the bar that we should judge against. But I think we need to, as people, be constantly judging things. But I don't think we shouldn't be responding to every negative judgment with hatefulness.
Yeah. So yeah, I think, to go back to your point, when someone says, "Don't judge me," they're saying, "Do not have negative feelings towards me." Would you say that's
I think people are more trying to say, like, I don't want whatever negative consequence is associated with my behavior being judged as bad.
Okay.
Right. Don't treat me differently, or don't treat me this way because you're judging this behavior negatively.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. What are your thoughts then on Jesus, Matthew 7, 1 through 5? The way I take is that we all like have something.
Right? Yeah, and I think this is what I love about this is why Jesus is cool. Jesus is awesome. I think if people truly got to know him, more people would like him. I think a lot of like,
dude, no one hates Jesus.
Yeah.
Like,
most people just hate Christians or the Christian institution.
Yes.
or religion, right? And
yes.
So this is like contextual, right? And so like Matthew 7, I believe that's the Sermon on the Mount.
I think he's towards the end of the Sermon on the Mount.
And so he is talking to his followers, right? So like the context is important. Who is he talking? Who's the audience? It's just people who are trying to be his followers, right? And so,
you think so? I think it's just like, imagine it's the year 30, nothing's going on. Like,
people are like, oh, like, let's go.
Yeah. Hey, have you heard of this Jesus guy?
No, I'm pretty sure they were literally following him around, and then they're like, "We want you to teach. We want you to teach. We want you to teach." And he's like, "Okay, fine." And they got up, like, stood up, and like started teaching.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I think the context is important. Of like, and like even the language he uses, like, he's talking about brother, right? And so these are people that are trying to follow his teaching, right? And so, but I think this is it's a very agreeable point that he's making of don't be quick to judge other people when you may have faults of your own as well.
Yes.
Right. And I think he's saying, like he's using the word the plank in your eye. It's symbolic of like if there was literally a plank in your eye, like you couldn't see. Right. So it's like he's saying like don't be making judgments about things you know nothing about is really kind of what he's getting at. Like if you can't see, like, you know,
you can't see properly. Like,
yeah,
don't be making a judgment if you're literally unable to see.
You have no context for it, right? Like if I couldn't see the thing, like I would know nothing about it. I guess I could hear or whatever. But and so I think it's kind of I think that kind of leads to like this greater thing that we society are missing of like empathy, right? Like I don't know what's going on in this person's life. How I'm going to make a judgment about this person. I can't see. I have a plank in, like there's something impeding me from understanding what's going on with them.
Yeah.
Right. And so I feel like it's almost more about like understanding, like creating understanding. I don't like, I think a lot of people might try to be like, oh, like you need to get rid of sin in your own life before you can judge the sin of other people. But I feel like it's almost, I feel like I'm almost taking it as like, you need to like remove the things from that might be preventing you from understanding this person's situation or understanding why they might have done this thing.
Okay. Let's jump to John 7:24 then, where it says, do not judge according to appearance, but judge with a righteous judgment. Would you say this is a contradiction in the Bible? How do you navigate Matthew 7 versus John 7?
So I was looking at this. I forgot about the context of this one. So this is, I believe this is John. I mean, Jesus is going to this festival, right? And there's all these Jewish leaders and teachers.
I see it as the feast, Jesus at the Feast of Booths, which I don't know what that is. I wish I knew, but so he's doing it there instead of the crowd in front of the Sermon of the Mount, you're saying?
Yeah. So this is, okay, I remember now. So this context is specifically about Jewish leadership and kind of the religious leaders of the time, right? He was kind of talking about, you know, how they are being hypocritical and contradicting themselves, saying, you know, you have to rest on the Sabbath, but then they're also doing circumcision on the Sabbath. And so, you know, Jesus was getting hate towards him for doing healings on the Sabbath, right? And so his thing is like, it's like, you guys are being silly. You guys are like judging me based on like these rules and laws that your religious leaders have told you, and you're, you know, essentially you're missing the forest for the trees. Like you're so focused on resting on the Sabbath, you're missing the fact that I'm doing these miracles and healing people, right? And so he's saying, don't judge according to like your rules and laws, like judge based on like the inherent good of the action that
what
is being done.
Yeah, what you know is should be good.
Yeah, and so it's I just feel like it's not really kind of. I think the context is really important of these statements, and I feel like if you look at enough of these snapshots of like Jesus speaking and whether it's about judgment or anything, you kind of like start to see his character, right? And so I think something I was thinking about this morning as we were kind of preparing for this is how much I really dislike like quoting scripture
without entire context or something.
Yeah, I just feel like it's really dangerous in a lot of situations if you just take these one-liners.
Sure.
Because
yeah, and I'm not trying to pin you,
you
know, or anything like that.
No, it's not about you in general. This is just like a general thing that
a
lot of Christians will do. They'll take a single quote, maybe without context, and then like, you know, have a series of actions or, you know, do certain things or believe certain things based on that. And so for me, I'd rather see the context of like all these times where just like, you know, Jesus, because your original question is like, what do you say about this contradiction in the Bible? And I don't find it to be contradictory. Like Jesus is talking to a specific audience in a specific context when he's saying these different things.
But wouldn't you say that Jesus is now negative towards the Pharisees? And you said judgment, when people say Christians shouldn't judge or whatever, is typically negative results or negative actions that can come.
I think you are placing that on him. If you look at the words, he says, do not judge according to appearance, but judge with righteous. He's like telling them, like, judge for yourself. Like, but do it in righteous judgment, right? So he's not like, he will later call them out and kind of like, but he's talking to the people. He's teaching the people, like, hey, we need to, like, be seeing good for good and bad for bad. And the other thing is, I think there's a different dynamic when you're talking about positions of power. Like, I think the people who are putting, like, if you're in a position of power, you are, you're ultimately responsible for the well-being of a certain people. If you're the president, it's the citizens of the United States. If you're a priest, it's a priest, it's for your congregation, right?
Yeah.
You have a responsibility to them, and so I think those people that you're responsible, they have a right to judge you, right?
The people
and your leadership.
So you're saying the people that you're responsible for, they're allowed to judge you.
Yeah, because there's a power. The person in power should be getting judged by the people without the power.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like that kind of ties into Paul, what we'll talk about a little bit later, but I first want to talk about then, like, what does righteous judgment look like to you? Because, like you said, I don't view this as a contradiction either, but Jesus does say, judge with righteous judgment. So how do you think that looks? And from what I'm getting out of your answer was whatever the people feel is good.
No, I feel like, it's. So this kind of goes back. We touched on this earlier. Is like, I didn't say we shouldn't judge, right? I think we should be judging.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So I think you need a barometer to judge against. And so for Christians, it should be the Bible.
Should be the Bible,
right?
Yes,
and kind of the teachings of Jesus and God, right? And so, as Christians, I think it would be kind of your righteous judgment should be based on Scripture.
Okay.
And it, again, circling back to, like, why I dislike Scripture being quoted without context is it allows people to. The barometer gets messed up, like the bar and kind of what you're measuring against. You're being lazy. You don't actually find out the context. You just want to, like, have a quick bite that you can kind of anchor your beliefs to. And I think that's really problematic and dangerous. And so I think it's important for Christians to know the context of the different beliefs that they have. And so for me, like we're focused on, like, don't judge, should we judge, all that. And I think, for me, I'm more interested about Jesus and like his, like, for me, my understanding of the Bible, I believe is more about the character of Jesus and who God is, right? And so, like, he's saying these things, maybe are they contradictory, are they not? But if you kind of if you look at each of these scenarios and all of these stories or events that happen throughout Jesus' teaching, you get to start to see themes. You see him almost always defending those who are marginalized or do not have power. And he's always showing love and care towards these people and these groups that are marginalized and that don't have power, and he's constantly challenging those with power to do better, to be righteous, essentially.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. And so for me, like me personally, my righteous judgment, like how I judge things to be righteous or not, is I put it against, like, does this align with the character of Jesus? Is this loving? Is this caring for those who are marginalized? Is this, am I extending grace to this person? Is this empathetic, right? And so for me, like righteous judgment, I like feels good. I feel like is like a very
It's dangerous.
yeah, I think a lot of Christians will say, oh, that's so dangerous, slippery slope. Like, where do you draw the line? Blah, blah, blah. But it's like, I would say like feels good is a decent barometer if you have a good understanding of who Jesus is truly is and his character, right? And then, obviously Jesus' character is effectively the same as God's character, right? So I think if you know who God is and his heart for his people, it's pretty I think it's generally a pretty good like bar. Like feels good. Like what would Jesus do? Like old school,
Okay.
And so I don't think it's the worst barometer.
So it feels good for the person being judged, or feels good for the person doing the judgment. What do you mean there? Or for both parties, like
no, I think I think I'm kind of taking it a little bit far saying feels good only, but I would say is it in alignment with who Jesus was,
what we know about Jesus and who he is,
and what he taught, right, and beyond the words he made, like the things he did and the people he defended, right?
Okay. What are your thoughts then when in Matthew 7, he says, take the plank out of your own eye, then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. To me, it kind of seems like that implies it is possible to reach a place where you can judge. Do you think it's even possible? My gut reaction as, Christians on this side of eternity, we'll always have a plank in our eye. There will always be a chunk of wood.
Yeah.
That's kind of the camp that I'm in. Where are you at?
Yeah, I kind of agree. Again, this is part of the Sermon on the Mount, and in the Sermon on the Mount, he talks about how narrow the path is, right? It's like Jesus is saying, like, hey, all these things I'm teaching is like, it's really hard. It's like it's like, it's like trying to fit a camel through the eye of a needle. It's probably impossible for us humans, us regular people who are not Jesus,
to live out.
And so, again, this goes back to like my understanding of who Jesus is. I think rather than, I think it's like that question kind of makes me feel like, am I like, at what point do I get the judge pass? Like, can I, like, how do I earn the pass where I get to judge people, right?
Well, I think some people can read it like that. And that's kind of why I worded it that way, because I think there are some people that feel like they have earned it. The
I'm holier than you mentality.
And it's whether they're conscious of that or not, whether they actually think that in their brain, I am holier than you. I think there are some people
I think it's just like, I think our human nature, our ego, right? Maybe some Christians might call this our original sin, right? Is our own ego, right? Like if I can judge you, I'll feel better about myself, right? If I think I've earned this judgment card, that means I must have done enough good things to be a good person and so I think it's just like trying to satiate their own ego. And I think it's inherently against the gospel. The whole point of the gospel is like Jesus had to come save us, sacrifice himself so that we could be cleansed and made whole in the eye of God the Father. Right. And then so I just it's so nuanced. Like I think we do need to make judgments about things every single day, all the time, but we shouldn't be in a place where we are trying to hate people or treat them poorly because of the judgments we make about them. Because I think ultimately Jesus came down to save us all. And I think focusing on like, do we get to judge is the wrong question.
Oh, yes.
I think it's, the question should be, how can I love this person despite all of this? Despite our judgments, despite how we feel, despite what they're doing, what their actions are, who they are, how can we love this person?
Mhm.
How can we live out the gospel of Jesus gave us the greatest gift in the world. He cleanses of all of our sin. He gave us forgiveness, right? How can we be loving, empathetic, ultimately forgive and be graceful to people, right?
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
feel like that's like the better question of like, then should we judge?
For sure. For sure. Then what are your thoughts when Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 5:12-13? This is the ESV. For what have I to do with judging outsiders? Is it not those inside the church whom you are to judge? God judges those outside. Purge the evil person from among you. So, what are your thoughts on that?
So again,
Context.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So the context for this one is Paul is writing to the church of Corinth, right? He just prior to this, he talks about how this church of Corinth is, he sees them as his children. He, through his teaching and mentorship of them, he feels that he's become their father, right? And, right now he's unable to visit them. But he's hearing rumblings about them doing a lot of immoral things, or members of the church doing immoral things. And so the context of here is, he's saying like, let's focus on the people in the church that are doing harm. I think he specifically calls out sexual immorality, swindling people, anger, and cheating. I think cheating people out of their money. And so the context of what Paul is saying is important. It's saying like, the church I built is not being, a benefit to society. We're doing poor, bad things. Yeah.
I mean, well, let's say you were in that scenario. Someone swindled you. You're in this church. How do you judge this person then?
I'd be pissed, but I'm a human being, right? I have a human being with human emotions, and my response would be to be pissed and to get even. Unfortunately, Jesus would say to like turn the other cheek and love this person. Jesus would probably be like, "Oh, he stole money from me. Like, give him some more. Like, he probably really needs it."
Do you think that's judgment then? Do you think like someone robbed me? They go to church. They claim they're this Christian guy. They straight up took my money. I'm kind of working through a scenario. I think, I was telling you before this.
Okay.
They go to church, or at least, do a lot of work with church stuff. Took my money. Ghost. What does judgment look like there? Obviously I'm not, the point I'm trying to get to is
like, what would I do in that scenario?
How do you judge those within the church? Does someone?
Yeah. So what I would probably do in that scenario is I would no longer associate with that person. I would probably remove them from my life. And then ultimately when the better part of me gets around to it, I'd probably forgive the person and let go of that.
Of course.
And then, let ultimately, God judge them for that. Like ultimately they're going to have to answer to God at the end of all of this. And so for me, I think it's more about what do I need to do to protect myself? And what do I need to do to forgive this person? But that's
do you think they need to be aware of judgment? Does someone need to be aware of judgment inside the church? Like Paul's telling these people, judge those inside the church. And so does this person need to be aware of judgment?
Like, should I tell him like, hey, you're going to hell? Or like, God's going to judge you. Is that what you're asking?
because I'm imagining this scenario where, let's say this guy swindled you. You decided to forgive them, but you're going to church the following week. Someone, hey, that guy's, he's solid, bro, dude. He's like the best Christian guy I know. And you're like, you just bite your tongue, and then
No, I wouldn't bite my tongue. I would share truth. Right? There's a difference between sharing truth and making judgment. So if I say like, yeah, the guy stiffed me for $20, like, there's nothing wrong with just being honest and being truthful. Right? Am I gonna say he stiffed me for $20? Like we should like get him, we should like beat him up, or like we should like make sure he goes like on the road to hell. No, like, or should we send a bunch of hate and vitriol his way? No, we shouldn't be doing any of that. Like,
is that gossip though? Let's say someone stole more money from you. It was 28,000. It's irrelevant, the amount, but
it's not gossip if it's truth. That's how I feel about that. Right, gossip is talking about things that you might have, like things you don't know about, things you've. Let me rephrase.
Well, I want to know that people will comment below.
I'm thinking incendiary, but okay.
But is it gossip if it's true? I think that's an interesting point.
I was just being incendiary. I think ultimately, like, it's not gossip because I was directly involved. Right? Gossip is inherently things like, oh, I heard this from this person, and like you're not a gossip is about things that you're not a party to. It's not necessarily your business.
Okay.
Versus I was directly harmed by this person. It is my lived experience. I have all the right to share about that.
Well, what do you think then about, Jesus in Matthew 18 lays out conflict resolution? You probably remember, if a brother sins against you, go to him privately. Let's say you did that. Hey, man, where's the money, whatever. If that doesn't work, go with another member of the church. If that doesn't work, go with elders, And so I feel like if we... You kind of have to do that first. And
that was assumed. I'm sorry. I really should clarify. That should be assumed. Is when I say like I need to protect myself, that includes trying to resolve the conflict, right? And so that says like, hey, I was harmed or hurt in this way. I realize I should probably clarify, like, me, but and the viewers don't. Is I would directly confront the person, saying like, hey, hey, you
did this.
I wouldn't necessarily. I would try to avoid you language, but this goes in a different, deeper rabbit hole about conflict resolution. But I would say, hey, when this happened, I felt this way, and talk to the person, and if they are, they feel sorry, apologetic, then, we can reconcile.
Right.
If they are unwilling, or they don't see an issue, that is at the point where I would probably need to create a boundary,
right,
and limit how much that person can impact my life.
Okay, so let's go back to this verse. Paul judges people in the church. Let's say you did that. It didn't work. You even went with others of the church. Everyone knows the context. They're on your side. You maybe even took an elder. Elder's on your side too, but they're not going to kick him out of the church or anything. I mean, I guess the judgment is what should the judgment be? Should this person be kicked out?
I wouldn't want anyone to get kicked out of any church ever.
Okay, so let's say someone stole $1 million from you. Some of the legal loopholes, they took your house.
No, someone could be I don't think they should be kicked from the church. I think they should be restricted. Yeah, exactly. I see your face.
No. Okay, keep going.
They should be restricted, and they should be put in a way in which they can't do heinous things, but they should still be loved and still be able to participate if they are, again, going back to what we just talked about, like if they have genuine remorse, if they are rehabilitated, if they, have, changed course. I don't. And so, when I say I don't think anyone should just be kicked or prevented from church, I truly believe that. I think you can, if you, again, context is very important, and I don't want to. Don't clip me saying Andrew knows well. It's ultimately, if you have genuine remorse and you are making amends and rehabilitating and trying to and are actively, changing, improving, becoming, a more righteous person, I think you should be welcome in the church.
Okay, we don't have to go the PayPal route, but let's go the $1 million route, or some person who's very good with legal paperwork. Somehow they stole your home, you, your wife, your kids. You're like homeless now. You got to go move back in with your parents, and let's say you take this to the church. You confront them. You follow the route laid out in Matthew 18, right? Doesn't work. Maybe church leadership, hey, whoa, we see legal documentation that you signed it over. Like, this is a lot of he said, she said. You're asking us to take a stance here that's tough. We can't make this judgment call. Like, what do you want us to do? And so you're kind of in that position, but this person straight up stole your house. And so what I'm saying is, let's say you see this person at church, and people, oh man, yep, that guy, he's a godly guy, dude, I love that guy. He prayed over me the other day. He's just such a solid dude. You could probably only hear that for so long.
Yeah, but if you've already done all the steps that we just talked about, like, what's the likelihood of that church or that community wouldn't know that person's true character by that point?
Okay, and so
and again, I think if you're directly involved, I think you should speak out about the ways you were harmed in your truth.
But let's say, so I guess the root question that I'm getting at is, like, you think, and let's say the majority of people are on your side. Okay, let's do two scenarios.
Okay.
No one's on your side, but it's happened. Your close friends, we believe you. The rest of the church, hey man, no, it's actually like very obvious. Andrew signed his house away, and I don't know what the big deal is. And the majority of people are actually on his side. I'm assuming you would probably leave that church and probably find a new one. Is that a safe assumption?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a problem with that? I guess
no, I think that's fair.
I would also do everything in my legal power to get my house back.
Of course.
Yeah.
Now let's take the opposite end, where the majority of the church is now on your side, but the leadership isn't kicking him out, and he actually just got promoted to leader of small groups or something.
would I like try to get him removed from that position?
Yeah. I guess and it does. Do you feel like that is not in line with making a judgment? Like, you're trying to protect this church, you're trying to get him thrown out, because if he can do this to me, he can do this to other people.
And this is assuming there's no remorse. There's no
remorse, dude. Yeah. Like, he's just rocking and rolling, dude. He's got a brand new house. He's loving it, and No,
I would speak out and share my what happened to me, and if the people who are empowering him don't do anything about that, that raises a bigger problem, right?
Yes,
that could be
yes.
And again, this situation is tricky because, like, these are all things that are illegal, right? And so I think this scenario might be more important if it's like something a little more borderline or like not legal. But if this was happening, one, I would speak out about the harm that I was caused to the people who are in leadership or in power.
Yeah.
If those leaders don't do anything about it.
So you would expect them to kick him out, though. What does the judgment look like? That's what I'm trying to say. That, let's say leadership is even like, what is the judgment? What does proper judgment look like?
Yeah, he probably should not be in a position to be leading people. Okay. And so,
but not kicked out from the church.
No, I don't think
because I would make the case, this guy.
But what does that do? Like, he gets kicked out from the church, and he like goes to new church and like screws people over. Like, I think it's just tricky, because if it's like with these, like, there's legal recourse to these things, and so it's not like really a practical.
But you know how
scenario.
like legal cases go, like could take forever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just so
And so
I'm just curious of what does judgment of the church, what does healthy judgment of those inside the church look like?
yeah, I don't know. I don't have like a hard I don't have a black and white answer for that. I think life is just too nuanced, and I think the context matters. And
Sure.
so in that specific scenario, I would take all the legal recourse I would talk to, you know, especially if he's being empowered into positions of leadership, you know, I would let people know, let the church know, like, hey, this person harmed me in this way.
Yeah.
Um, and then it's up to the church or the leadership to do something about that. Because I'm already taking I'm already doing something about it, right? I'm taking all the legal recourse I have to.
Okay. Well, then let me be devil's advocate here. Paint a different scenario for you. I'm a guy who goes to church. I profess to love Jesus. I'm lifting my hands at worship and everything.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm just a fiend on the weekends, and why save it for the week? Every day of the week, I'm just pure fiend mode. And, you know, whether it's girls, alcohol, drugs, would you not feel that you should, you're,
It depends.
yeah.
It depends. Is it like me and you, like where I'm like your good friend, I know you well, I'm involved in your life?
Yeah. Let's say that. Good friend. I just go fiend mode tomorrow.
Yeah, and again, I think this goes back to what we talked about earlier about empathy. Is like in that scenario, like I know you, I know who you are, I know what you've going through.
Sure. So you know, if I go fiend mode, something's probably up.
Yeah, there's like something going on,
Okay.
right? And so in that scenario, yeah, I would probably intervene and do something about
Okay.
it.
What about not a close friend, but you just know, hey, ooh, that guy, like,
Then in that scenario, I'm not being directly harmed or hurt by you. But I would probably seek out those who are, right? So if like you're going fiend mode and I don't really know you that well, I'd probably talk to like your, you know, if you have a partner or your parents or your siblings, like people who
friends
are, or your friends, like people who are directly being impacted by your negative behavior. I would reach out and support them and you know, and try to support them. But like it's not my responsibility to like get you kicked out of church just because you're being a hypocrite. Everyone's a hypocrite. I'm a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite. Like we're all hypocrites, right? And so it's not like a basis for trying to get someone removed or kicked out of church or even really being hated. I think you probably.
I think in that scenario, you know,
maybe even like, maybe even that scenario, like I don't know you, but maybe I'd try to get to know you. Maybe I want to like try to empathize, see what's going on. Like kind of making the example very real. Like 2024 was the hardest year of my life, right? I was still going to church, but to be honest, I was kind of a dick to everybody. Like I didn't want to be talked to. I didn't want people to talk to me. I just want to be left alone. I had no emotional bandwidth to be have a cheery conversation or do small talk. I just like, you know, people would introduce themselves to me. I'd say hi, and I kind of like move on, right? And like a lot of people that met me that time probably think like, oh, he's not a very friendly person, right? And so. But like no one knew what was going on in my life. And so those people, luckily I go to a church of loving people who who I feel like are a reflection of Jesus' character. You know, they still are still nice to me. They're still friendly to me. And to be honest, I was thinking about I should probably like apologize to them. Be like, hey, you know, I was going to heart year, and when we first met, I probably was a little bit cold. Like, sorry. Like I probably owe them an apology. Right at this point, now that I'm feeling I'm better and, you know, not depressed and stuff. And so like I just like you just never know what people are going through. You don't know what's causing their behavior, and so you can get to know them and try to empathize if you really want to help, or try to support those, the loved ones around them that are trying to help this person. But again, you kind of hear the language. It's like, it's help them, support them, love them. That's kind of where we should be coming from. We shouldn't be like, our gut reaction shouldn't be like, oh, this guy's a hypocrite. Let's like try to get him kicked out for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think the scenario of the guy, like pure fiend mode guy, he shouldn't be kicked out. But I think someone who is causing harm to like the fellow believers, stealing your house or whatever, it's a tough. And
don't get me wrong. I realize my earlier statements. I'm like a little bit worried about that being online now. At this point, we're gonna get hard canceled. But just to be clear, like people who are doing harm to, they need to be stopped.
Yes.
Like them being stopped and doing everything that's within the powers of the law, like that needs to be done. Just to be whether you're a thief or a predator or whatever you are, like just to be clear, like they need to be stopped through all the powers and the means within the law.
Right.
My main point is, should they still be, be given, dignity as a person and be cared for as a human being and as a person? I think if they're remorseful and willing to rehabilitate, they should. I believe that's what Jesus would do.
All right. I'm going to give you a tough scenario.
Okay.
And this one's not scripted, so I apologize.
No,
you haven't had the chance to think about it, so take a moment to think. Tough scenario. Let's say you're a pastor, you're a senior pastor, guy on staff, pastor on staff.
I already see where this is going.
Was caught
mostly because it happens all the time. Unfortunately,
yes.
Unfortunately,
so, guy on staff was caught in kids, right?
Okay.
Let's say it went to court. He's guilty, right? And he served 20 years.
Okay.
He's released from prison.
Okay.
Are you welcoming him back with open arms to your church?
Is he reformed?
He says he is in prison.
No, but like, okay. He says he is, but like, is he? Like, you can judge. Again, we should judge things, right?
Right.
So you can judge a person's character, by the way they act and behave.
Right.
And so like, if he's still being a weirdo, like hanging around with kids, like then that's probably like, no go. He's probably not reformed. But if he's genuinely reformed.
Well, how can you tell? Because he's been in prison for 20 years, and now here's 20 years later coming back to your church. Hey,
so I think
I'm assuming he's not serving on staff. Right?
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was gonna get to is like with all things in life, it's not like there's no line in the sand. It's everything's on a spectrum, right? And so this is a bigger conversation about trust and how you trust people. But like if his fault, his whatever he did is that bad, like that's pretty as bad as it gets, right? Like that trust needs to be rebuilt and earned over time, right? And so like going to prison, doing your time, like that's step one, right? And no, like, do I think that person should be shunned and not let in the church door? No, like he needs to be allowed to come to church. Is he going to be able to serve in kids ministry? Hell no, right? Like, should he be watched carefully and only, allowed to interact with adults and not be allowed to interact with, people, alone? Like, yeah, there's got to be boundaries and steps that you take to rebuild the trust.
Yeah.
But if that person is reformed and he's acting reformed and they're, they want to, like, I just feel like that's what Jesus would do. Like Jesus was never one to just send people, just like banish them.
Yeah.
Right?
Away forever.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
That's not how Jesus, we know that Jesus is not, you banished.
Yeah. Jesus hung out with tax collectors. Like that was like the worst of the worst back then. Right. And so, I think that person still needs to be ministered to. And I think that person should be welcome into church. No, they should not have any positions of power. They really should have very little
I mean,
to
yeah,
no influence really in the church.
I think it's safe to say
Yeah.
he's never going to serve on staff again. Like those days are over.
You know, enough. Maybe he goes here. Maybe he did his 20 years and he's been going to the church. He's been a faithful member for 20 years, right? So like, let's say like he's put in his time to rebuild trust for over 40 years.
Mhm.
Like maybe he can serve like, you know, doing something that's not related to kids.
For
Maybe
sure.
he could work the tech booth. Like, make sure there's no kids working the tech booth. You know, it's like,
Mhm.
I think people should be given second chances, and people should be given the opportunity to rehabilitate and to re-enter society. But that comes tentatively, and that comes with having to build trust.
Yeah.
And that just stems from my belief in the gospel of like, I mess up all the time, and if I was never given a second chance, like we would all be
In hell.
none of us would have any relationship with any of us if we don't like give each other second chances. And so like obviously that is like the most egregious of things you can do, and so that rightfully should take the most amount of rebuilding of trust over time, and you have to really put in the time and work. Like you can't just forgive that person overnight. Like
Yeah.
They need to be forgiven, and then they need to re-earn their place in society, in the church.
Okay. Is there a difference between discernment and judgment, or do you feel like that's just wordplay that Christians use?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was thinking about this too, and I think it's fair to use them interchangeably.
Okay.
But again, this goes back to the very top of what we talked about. Is like judgment is not inherently a bad thing.
Right.
Right. I think we need to be discerning or judging.
Mhm.
Right. We need to be drawing conclusions about our everyday life all the time. But what you do with those judgments and those conclusions should have an underlying grace and love and beneath it. And then also like context matters, right? Like the relationship you have to that person. If there's trust being broken, there's harm being done, that trust needs to be rebuilt over time with corrected action. Right. And so I think for me personally, I think discernment a lot more of like personal wisdom. I think about like how I'm getting to conclusions about my personal life and how I see the world, versus like, I guess like intuitively, I think judgment is like more about people and institutions. And so I guess in my mind, that's intuitively how I've separated, but I think they're by definition fairly interchangeably. And so I think that's why what we talked about at the beginning is very important about, judgment is not the same as what you do with that judgment, right? Like the actions you take.
So you feel like judgment is more on the net negative or positive it can lead to.
So that's my main point. I don't think it's either. I think it's net neutral. I think judgment is just is
because you can have good judgments and bad judgments, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree? Like, I drank too many things last night and I made a bad judgment call.
I guess I'm not really sure where you're trying to get at.
Well, you said it's neutral.
Yeah, because ultimately making a judgment is just making a conclusion.
Right.
Right. So I think it's a net neutral thing.
Yeah.
Like you can make conclusions about anything in the world.
Yes, and they can be good judgments or bad judgments.
What do you mean by that? Like, okay, let's take your example. I drank too much last night. Is that a good judgment or a bad judgment? I don't understand.
I would say that was a bad judgment call.
The call was bad. The judgment itself is just you made a conclusion.
So that specific judgment was bad.
No. The decisions you made that last night were bad. the judgment itself is just, I had too many to drink. Like it's not good or bad. It's like, it's truth.
Okay.
Right. Versus the actions you took last night, that was not good. That was bad.
Okay.
And so I don't think judgments are good or bad. I think judgments just literally like concluding things.
Got it.
I think those judgments, I guess, could be inaccurate, or I guess maybe what you're getting at is like, can you make a bad judgment?
Right.
And I think for me, it would be like, if you make a conclusion that's either incorrect or, is not have proper context, right? For example, like, oh, like this guy's like an a-hole, right? And it's just like, that conclusion was made with very little data.
Sure.
Right. And like, there's no context for that.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, oh, for example, like driving, get cut off. I'm human, man. F this guy. Right. It's like, and so
F stands for forgive.
Right. So it's like I'm making a judgment about that person's entire character and well-being based on them cutting me off. Like, that's not a good conclusion to make. Like, that's lacks support, probably inaccurate. Like, they were probably in a rush, or
Tesla drivers make it hard sometimes.
Maybe they had remote driving on, and like the Tesla autopilot sucks, and so it cut me off. Like, you like and so it's like, can you make incorrect, ill-informed judgments about people? Yes. Is that harmful? Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. But I think the act of making judgments is net neutral. It's the quality of the judgment or conclusion that you make is
so the act is net neutral.
Yeah. Okay. Like you have to. Everyone has to make conclusions about things.
The act itself is okay, because I know we're trying to keep this high level, but there are certain people that protest certain things.
Yeah, just like pick an example without doxing somebody, I guess.
We can just keep out like people protesting certain things. Is that
there's a lot. I really want to throw out some things. Should we just?
You can rattle off. Go rattle off. I mean,
no, go. Continue that.
Look, because. Well, and I realize, given the topics that we talked about before, YouTube is. I'm gonna have to like censor out some words because it's gonna get censored. But
yeah, edit the place.
So, what I'm saying though is, when let's say someone is protesting a certain group, whether it's certain federal groups that are out and about right now.
Well, should we just go there?
Sure, we can go there.
Okay, sure. ICE protests.
ICE protests.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Is that good or bad?
Is what good or bad?
I would say the protesters are making a judgment. They're saying that this is bad, right? So would you say that they're making a good judgment? They're saying ICE is bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think at that point, the judgment, it's not neutral anymore. Like, you view it as either good or bad.
The ICE's actions are good or bad?
I would say the people that are protesting, they're making a judgment call through their protest actions.
Yeah, and I would argue that they're making an informed judgment call. Like, right, and again, the information that we have available is just what we see in the news,
of course.
But ultimately, those people, the people who are protesting, I should say, they have made, some of them maybe are making, I would like to believe many of them are making an informed judgment and decision about how they feel about ICE based on the information that we're receiving on the news. Maybe some people just see like one clickbait title and like, they're like, ICE sucks, right? But if you are like, realistically, if you are taking time out of your day to go protest ICE,
calling off work,
I know
skipping school.
a lot of students stood up and like left school. Like I would like to believe that those judgments or those decisions are not being made lightly, that they are either absorbing the news, or more realistically, they know people who have been negatively impacted by ICE.
Right.
Like they have people in their lives who are being treated poorly, unjustly, potentially, by ICE, or they, right. And so I would like to think that they're making informed decisions. I would also like to flip it and say, like, is ICE, are they making good judgments? Are they informed about the things they're doing? Or are they just raiding people and just rounding up whoever they can to hit their numbers or follow orders or do whatever? Like, going back to like what we were talking about at the beginning is like, is ICE, are they behaving from a place of understanding? Do they know the lives that they are impacting, and like what has driven, like who's realistically like gonna like immigrate to the US undocumented and risk their lives and do all those things without having a context that they are trying to flee from, right? And so I think, yeah, you can ask like, are the protesters making a good judgment by protesting, versus, and then on the flip side, like, is the government, is ICE, are they making good judgments by doing what they're doing? And do they know? And so I think people are protesting because they know, or they have people in their lives that are being negatively impacted by ICE, and they know their story. They know why they are afraid to go back home or go back to the country they immigrated from, right? And so, and then the last thing I think we touched upon at the beginning when we were talking about, John 7, is people in power do need to be judged. People in power, they need to be held accountable for things. And so, I think the protesters are, holding ICE accountable for the things they're doing. All right. And so, yeah, I think.
But doesn't on both sides of that, don't we eventually have subjectivity?
Sorry, one more quick thing. Just to answer your kind of the original question, like, is judgment good or bad or net neutral? I think the judgment themselves are neutral, right? I think we're making a determination about the action. Is protesting good or bad? Is what ICE is doing good or bad? Like, that's different than saying like, or are people making a good judgment or not? Like, I don't know. I don't know if that's getting like too convoluted, but sorry, what were you saying?
No, I think I get what you're saying. But I think at the end of the day, wouldn't you say subjectivity will come into play, because there are people who say, I approve of ICE, everything that they're doing, and I think it's good. And then there's going to be people that say,
yeah,
I don't approve. I think it's bad. I think it's a waste of money. And we could be putting those funds to different things.
Yeah.
And so how would you define that subjectivity then?
Yeah. So that goes back to righteous, what we talked about, righteous judgment, right? And I think it's like, life is not black and white. There's a spectrum, right? And so, going back to righteous judgment, for me and what I believe Christians, I can't speak for everybody, right?
Right.
We don't live in a society where one ideology gets to dictate everyone's actions. That's not how the world works, or shouldn't, at least. But
you don't think so? You don't think so?
What?
You'd be, if you think about it, the foundations of the Declaration of Independence and everything is their Judeo-Christian values.
Yeah.
If we lived in a Muslim state right now, we couldn't have this conversation. We couldn't be talking about Jesus and doing something like this. You know what I mean? So, like, I just think
talking specifically like an authoritarian.
Well, I would say, do you not believe then that
There are Muslim states, with free speech as well. So you're talking about specifically like an authoritarian one where there's a regime that is restricting free speech.
Sure. And I would say that those are probably people that believe that they're following the Quran like to the highest level. I believe that's like, if you look at 9/11 and those, like, I believe they thought that they were doing well, right?
Okay. I don't know where you're going with this.
The point I'm trying to make here is that, you do you not think the world would be a better place if everyone lived under Christian values? If everyone became Christian tomorrow, do you think the world would be a better place?
Depends on the Christianity you're talking about. The one that's biblical and is of Jesus' character, or the one that we have in the U.S. Yeah, but that's just not how free will works. And I think God has given us free will, right? And so, I just,
with that free will, though, let's say tomorrow.
I think to answer your question, like, I don't think that government or religion should dictate people's morality. I think God gave us free will, and so we should.
Government only, or religion too? I think religion should dictate your morality, like the 10 Commandments.
I meant everyone's moral. Like, I don't think one religion should force their moral value system onto everybody.
So you don't think
I think people should choose into that moral value system.
Of course.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. If everyone became Christian tomorrow, let's say
if everyone chose to be Christian,
everyone just of their free will. I know, in a vacuum.
Okay, sure, in a vacuum, everyone in their free will chose to take on the values of
the Bible,
of the Bible,
and they feel, and Jesus, they believe, hey,
this is not a real question, because we're saying in a vacuum, but like life is not in a vacuum, right? And there's there's so much cultural context. There's so much, there's so many different contexts that impact, like, the way I read and understand the Bible is so heavily impacted by who I am, like where I grew up, my race, my ethnicity, the fact that I'm a man, the fact that I grew up in the US, like the
way you interpret the Bible is way different than a female living in China or something.
Yeah, because like I think I remember like hearing from a friend who went on mission in China, like they don't, like in China, like they don't even have like a word for God, like they don't have a word for like the Judeo-Christian God. So in their translations in the Bible, I think they like have translated it to like effectively, like I could be mistaken.
Is that the government censorship thing?
No,
I've heard about
that.
No.
Like they literally just don't have a word for like a Judeo-Christian like singular God. So they like basically have had to translate it using like, I think, like the sun god.
Okay.
Like the name for sun, like right, for like in the US we say God, right? Or like in English, but then like, more accurately it would be like Yahweh, right? In Hebrew, Greek, I could be Hebrew, I think, right? And so like in Chinese, there's no like Yahweh, right? Sure, so they had to like substitute like the name for that. It used to be, I think, like the like Buddhist or like or some other. I'm completely uneducated about this. I just heard this from a friend. It's like, so like, how does it shape the context of like of your Christian faith as a person in China? Like you don't even have like the word God, right? And so like when you say like if we all in our free will in a vacuum chose Christian values, the world would be heaven. It would be literally heaven. Like it would be heaven came to earth, and it'd be literally heaven, right?
No, I think on this side of eternity, we both believe, and please correct me if you feel wrong, that we have sin in us no matter what, like on this side of eternity. Like And so even if everyone became Christian tomorrow, we still live in a broken world.
Okay, so you're saying we simply have all taken on that value system, but we're not necessarily living it out perfectly.
Sure, but I would say,
yeah, I think society would be a much better place.
Okay,
if
you scared me first.
I would just if we are talking about the Christianity that is like
exemplified
biblical,
by Jesus, yeah.
Again, we're saying in a vacuum, so we have to strip away all this like American
of course, yeah,
cultural context.
Yeah.
Right. There's like just so much crap that's been added to, you know,
what Christian
evangelical means. You know,
like the definition of Christianity has become lost a little, would you say?
Yeah, I think it's been completely overtaken by, you know, these quasi US values. And so, yeah, if everyone, you know, had these biblical Christian values completely stripped out of, completely stripped of all these weird other cultural values that every country has, not just to keep bagging on the US, like, you know, Christianity in China versus Africa versus in Latin America, they all look different, even though we're all trying to live out the same values. But yeah, we living out this, you know, biblical values, the world would be a much better place.
Okay,
I could say that for about a lot of world religions, though. Like I wouldn't say that specific to Christianity. And
okay,
so,
then do you not think it would be the best version of planet Earth?
I think
because you make a good point. I'm sure there's great values in Buddhism and Hinduism, and I'm sure there's even a couple good ones in Islam.
I think that question really misses the point of Christianity and what sets it apart. And you touched on it. Like, the idea of Christianity is like we're all broken in need of saving.
Right. But not every other worldview has that.
Yeah, and so you're asking, like, if we all had Christian values, would the world be the best of all the religions? Like why does that matter? Like, the whole point of Christianity is like we're all broken and messed up anyway. Like, we're all totally screwed up, right?
I would say that's why it matters.
And so
because those other,
so maybe not. Maybe a good Christian value system wouldn't be the best. Like, because maybe
you're clickbaiting, Doug.
You know, because the idea is like that we're all broken, right? Maybe society would run better if we all like followed a very strict, you know, a more strict religious system that had a lot of rules. Like, probably not, because that's what they tried in the Old Testament. It didn't work out very well, but you know, maybe. Like, I don't know the answer to that question. Is my point. I was clickbaiting a little bit. I don't know the answer. I am not here to make a conclusion or judgment about which value system would create the best society on earth.
But okay, you don't think it's extreme then? I feel like it's very safe to say, please correct me if I'm wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Christians believe that if a Christian society would be the best form of society.
Yeah, I'll stop clickbaiting. What I would say is, I think Christianity inherently,
and I'm talking true Christianity, not this.
It creates, I would say, it inherently creates a basis of being humble, right? The idea of like, hey, we're broken, we make mistakes, we sin, you know, we are not right by God, we cannot, and the key is like we cannot earn our right relationship with God. We can't earn salvation. Like, it needed to be given to us. I think the gospel of the idea that God loves us so much that he gave us his only son to wipe our slate clean so that we can be seen as right in his eyes. That basis creates it's humbling. It's humbling. I feel loved every day by God because of that feeling. Or that belief that I have.
Well, you believe that.
Yeah, that belief. Yeah, that belief humbles me. It makes me want to be a more loving and caring person. It makes me want. I'm not always. I'm a bit of a hothead, and so, but I want to be more, you know, kind and more gracious and understanding and more empathetic. And so, if we all internalize the gospel and live that life out, yeah, I think society would be really good.
Yeah.
And so I think, because I think a lot of, I could be wrong, but a lot of religions, there's this aspect of where you need to earn something, right? You need to behave and do righteous or good acts to earn something,
Right.
whether it's salvation or whatever it is. But Christianity, the whole point is like you can't earn it. God is willingly offering and giving it to you as a gift.
Yes.
And so I think that there is some basis of being the kind of, that basis kind of creates some humility.
Yes, I agree.
Which I think would be a net pause. It's like the idea of dying to your ego, right? We talked about ego earlier and how a lot of judgment, a lot of why we treat people poorly is to protect our own ego.
Yeah.
And if that ego was completely dead, you know, even if you screwed up and hurt me, like I you know, I would be able to respond in kindness a lot easier if I didn't have my own ego to protect.
Yeah. Why do you think modern culture treats disagreement like as hatred? Like especially moral disagreement. It seems like moral disagreement has become I hate you, you hate me.
I think there's just a lack of empathy. I think this is more of like a practical thing than like a philosophical or theologic question. I think if we understood each other and had more empathy for people who are not like us, this probably wouldn't happen, I guess. Okay, let me expound on that further too. I think there is a context for majority culture. Let's just pick Christians, for example. Effectively persecuting, alienating, marginalizing people who don't have their belief system. So I think the people who are getting marginalized, they have a basis for feeling hated, right? You know, if a lot of, especially in the U.S., a lot of Christian or the Christian institution, you know, if you don't agree or don't live the lifestyle they say you should, they have not responded with love. They've responded with, well, you know, quote unquote judgment, right? More specifically, you know, hating people or making their, you know, behaving in a way that makes their life difficult or you know, marginalizing or, you know, alienating the people who don't agree with them. It kind of makes sense that they would, you know, respond with being like, oh, you don't know what I believe. You don't understand me. I hate you back. Right. And so I think kind of making this more practical, I think we as Christians, whatever the answer to this question is, like, you know, why does culture see it that way? It's unimportant to me. To me, what's important is that I, as a Christian, need to go out and like understand people, understand what people's stories are, where they're coming from, why they believe the things they believe. Even if I disagree with them, I need to understand that.
Yeah.
Because I'm part of the majority. I'm part of the group that's kind of in power here. Right. And so as a kind of being part of the group that's in power, I need to be humble, and even if I disagree with them, at least understand why they're coming from.
Yeah.
And so I think, I don't know why modern culture does it, but I think I think the onus needs to be on Christians to break that cycle.
Yeah. Slow down, seek to understand more.
Yeah.
Safe. I think
it can, you know, the people that disagree with Christian theology or morality, they kind of are justified in hating us. We kind of, like, Christian institution kind of deserves it.
How did you come to learn all these things? Do you mind doing like brief testimony?
Yeah. So, I was not raised in a religious home. My parents immigrated here from Korea, and so I didn't they were not really religious people. And then around middle school, our I had some family members wrote my parents and then taking us to church. And you know, my parents really were in it, I think, more for the community.
Yeah.
And wanting to make sure we were instilled some sort of moral value system. So I would go, and it was kind of like it was an all Korean Catholic church, and I really didn't connect with a lot of how ritualistic a lot of it felt, and how it felt like we were just kind of doing these traditions and kind of going through the motions. It almost felt like I was trying to earn something from God by doing baptism, confirmation, communion, confession. Like I felt like I was trying to earn things, and I think that's shaded a lot by the Korean culture at that. That was
combination of Catholicism plus Korean culture.
Yeah, I think
taking it to like an even higher level.
A lot of you need to earn your place, right?
Yeah.
And so, I need to get out of there. You invited me to high school youth group.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a great excuse to go to that instead. Like, be like, hey, mom, I'm still like going to church, and I'm still like getting those good values.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have to drive 40 minutes on a Sunday.
Oof.
And high school ministry was Saturday night, which meant I could stay home and watch football by myself while the rest of my family drove 40 minutes each way to go to Korean church.
Yeah.
And so
sounds like a win to me, dude.
Yeah, it was a great great way to kind of bait and switch my way out of going to church with my family. After going to high school ministry, went to summer camp, and at summer camp, I came to believe that God was real. I feel like I had basically an experience moment of connection with God. There was some intelligent design kind of things that were happening in my mind as well that kind of made me feel like God exists, and God is real, and he cares about me.
Intelligent design, like nature.
Yeah, kind of I feel like this world was not like created through randomness.
Oh, dude,
right.
And that's the one verse I wish I had it written down here, but it was, so that man is without excuse. That's the number one reason to not have an excuse, according to God, is nature. Like Earth itself.
Yeah, so that was kind of like the original stepping stone to my faith, and then went through a big apologetics phase, and so I was very early in the podcasting game, like back in 2009, 2010. I was already listening to podcasts like sermons and Christian theologists and apologetics and all that. And I think kind of built up my knowledge of the Bible from that. If I were to be completely honest, like the amount of Bible I've actually read is probably not as much as I should have. And so if you're listening to all this, take it with a grain of salt. But I think I've listened to a lot of informed people talk about this.
Sure.
Talk about this stuff. And then I was part of a group called InterVarsity. I learned a lot more nuance about faith. I think I saw faith very black and white. And I think InterVarsity really stresses the value of like how culture plays into faith. Mm-hmm. And I realized like, my faith is mine because of my upbringing and my life experiences and the things I've seen, the people I've, interacted with, and someone else's faith journey could be different.
Totally.
And then I went on mission with InterVarsity, and I really learned about kind of how much injustice is in the world and how much inequality there is, and how really I dove into scripture a lot, to prepare for that mission. And the program that I was on, they help you prepare, and I learned just how much God talks about the marginalized, and how much he talks about defending the powerless, and how that's basically how I learned that's where I learned Jesus' character. Is they just kept showing me these like scriptures and these verses where like God was just like always looking to take care of the weakest person in the group, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's really what drives a lot of my kind of what we talked about today, and how I feel like it's important for us to understand what people are going through rather than judging them.
Yeah.
Um, Judging them, and because you just don't know what's going on with people's lives, and so, and then uh, another big step. When I met my wife, I learned a lot about uh just empathy and kind of how that relates to scripture and faith, and who Jesus heart, like I just learned about Jesus heart and his caring and his loving heart from my wife. And then lastly, I'm a father of two, and
Mm.
so I think I've learned a lot about how God the Father views people,
Mm.
right? And I think why I kind of want to talk about judgment is like I look through I look through the lens of
Being a father.
of the Christian faith through how I see my kids,
Right.
right? Like, yeah, do I get upset that when they do something wrong? Yeah, I'm judging them. I'm making a
Mhm.
conclusion that what they're doing is good or bad. But do I treat them harshly or with hatred or with, you know, no, I empathize with whatever he or she, I have a boy and a girl, what they're feeling. I try to get them to use their words to explain why they did what they did, and then I love them, and then I correct the behavior, right?
Right.
And so, um, I think if we saw other humans through the lens of like, this person is a
Someone's
child
child.
of God, loved by God. This person is my brother or my sister or my neighbor. Like, how much more empathy and understanding would there be in the world instead of judgment? Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like why I wanted to talk about this is if we could just see each other as, you know, God's children and see how much God, loves this person, we whatever judgments we make about them wouldn't really matter. We would treat them with a
Well,
lot of
yeah.
dignity.
I feel like the amount of like even if your judgment on a
Yeah.
scale of 1 to 100 is
Yeah.
here, the amount of love just consumes it,
Yeah.
and the judgment is still there, but the love just outweighs it so much.
Well, no, the judgment is still there, but the actions and how we respond to those judgments are fueled by love
Right.
and
Yeah.
empathy rather than fueled by ego.
That's what I'm saying. The driving force for
Again,
your words is not judgment. It is being led by love more than anything.
yeah. Right, because again, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think making the judgment is net neutral. How you act or how you respond to the judgment you've made, it's fueled by something.
Yeah.
Typically your ego and wanting to protect that. But if it instead it can be fueled by, I'm loved by God. I feel so full of love from God. This person's loved by God. Let me respond in love.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think you saw, one of the questions that I like to ask is, what's the number one thing that churches need to stop doing? I'm assuming we've been talking about it, or is there something else?
yeah, so I think I'm a big believer in action verbs. And so, like, rather than saying like what should churches and Christians stop doing, I, I think the better question is like, what do we need to do more of? Or what do we need to even
Okay.
start doing?
Okay.
Because if we are always focused on what we should not do or stop doing, it's like, I think I mentioned this earlier, it's like you're running a race while looking back. Like, you don't want to run a race looking at the start line. You run the race looking at the finish line, right? And so,
Okay.
and we're focused on what we should stop doing. It's like you're looking at the start line and running, you're running backwards. Right?
Well, I think it's what should they stop doing and start
Yeah,
doing
exactly.
instead? So maybe I should add on a little caveat
Yeah.
there.
So I think what we need to, I don't know what we need to stop doing, but I know what we definitely need to start doing is being more welcome, being more empathetic, being responding with more kindness, giving being gracious, giving people opportunities to redeem themselves, to reconcile, to rehabilitate themselves. And so, uh, yeah, I think there's just things both Christians, like on an because ultimately the church is just an aggregate of Christians, right?
Yeah.
So Christians, we need to be living out the grace and forgiveness and empathy that God the Father gave to us by sending his only son Jesus to save us all, sacrifice himself and save us all. We need to use that, or we need to model that level of graciousness and empathy and forgiveness to those who harm us, or
Amen.
not even harm us, to those we judge as doing the wrong thing.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Well, any last thoughts, man? You want to turn the table on me? Anything?
No, I know. I wanted to do this. I was passionate because I just want people to, yeah, just be more empathetic and gracious and seek to understand those. And,
Yep.
uh, what I believe is shaped by who I am, right? The fact that I'm Korean, I grew up here. I'm a child of immigrants. I'm married. I have 2 kids. I'm a Christian. Like all of these things shaped who I am. And if that's all I did, my understanding of the world would be narrow, right? We need to have relationship, have understanding with people who are not like us
Yeah.
to expand our understanding of the world so that we can better uh empathize and ultimately treat each other better.
Yeah.
Right. I think hate stems from not understanding each other. So yeah, that's all
All right.
all for me.
Well, thanks, bro. Appreciate you coming out.